I want to talk to you in this video about profiling, often termed racial profiling, the assumption I think that it must be racist. And let me begin by admitting right up front that I'm guilty of profiling. Uh, and I'll explain why I ended up being a racial profiler. And then you can tell me whether you think it was racist or not. My first job was in a bakery. I worked there for a couple of months. But my second job I landed was at a Center City parking garage in Philadelphia. It's one of these multi-level things, valet parking with all the tires screeching and the people, the drivers, cars going around the corners real fast, all that stuff. I did that for 16 years, mostly in a lot that was on a corner outdoors. And, we had a street on our right, a street on our left, and an alley, a street to the left, to the right, and another alley going down in the back, where if you went back there, you could find a way to climb over the fence and get through where the top of the fence and the wall was and get into the lot. Or on the one side, people could go up, climb up the fence and go up. They could hoist themselves up on a drain pipe. They could get up onto the second floor, get into the lot and steal cars and do stuff like that. I worked there for 16 years. That's a long time. Not 16 hours, not 16 days, not 16 weeks, not 16 months, 16 years. I basically grew up there. I worked there from when I was 16 to I was 32. Worked my way through high school, college, and graduate school. Ended up with graduating with no debt. It can be done. Admittedly, though, things were a lot cheaper then. And during that time, I began to profile. Now, why did I begin to profile? Well, years ago, I don't have a list anymore. I made a list of all the crimes I witnessed because there was a lot. You work in Center City for 16 years, you see a lot. I saw a major theater burn down with the firemen crawling in through the roof. It's really spectacular. A couple of flyers, uh, Stanley Cup parades. I was in a scene from Rocky, one Saturday morning when they closed off the streets and nobody could get into our lot and they were filming Rocky. And I was out on Chestnut Street and the crowd as he ran by yelling, Rocky, 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 Rocky. I was also here at night. Officer Faulkner was shot and killed by Abu Jamal, Mumi Abu Jamal. I had finished up and I was in Ed's Tavern on Sansom Street. It's like 2 blocks away when that shooting went down. I came out and everybody was, running around. I didn't witness it or anything like that, but I said, so there was a lot of stuff going on when you work in Center City. And over the years, I personally was involved in, by my count, about on average 2 crimes a year. Now, most of these were car thefts. Somebody would get into the lot, sneak upstairs, get in a car. The keys were parked in the cars, and they drive out. And once they start driving out, there was very little you could do to stop them. I mean, twice I almost got run over by people trying to, stop cars from getting out. But if they were determined and if they were going to break the law, they weren't worried about running you over either. So, you quickly got out of the way. Or in one case, I was pulled out of the way by somebody. Um, Mostly that, but I also witnessed a couple of armed robberies, my shooting, and an assault, and an arson. We had an arson attempt. Somebody tried to burn up some of the cars. But it were about 3 dozen crimes. One night, my assistant manager was shot in the head by a patron. Uh, so there was, I saw a lot of stuff go down. One time, a guy did something in a bank. I think he was trying to pass some bogus documents or something, and they tried to nab him, and he ran out and he knocked down an old retired guy who was working as a security guard outside. He fell down the steps, and I saw him go. And I knew the guy, and anyway, the guy made the mistake of cutting through our garage, and I fortunately wasn't armed, and I grabbed him and actually apprehended him. So, I'm talking. I saw a lot of shit go down. When I made this list years ago, and I thought back to who had committed these crimes, pretty clear pattern developed. Of the 32 crimes, not one was committed by an Asian female. Not one was committed by a South Asian female. Not one was committed by uh, an African American female. Not one was committed by a Latina. Not one was committed by a white female. Not one was committed by a Native American female. I think I covered most of the ethnicities we run into in this country. Not one was committed by an Asian male. Not one was committed by a South Asian male. Not one was committed by a Native American male. One, the arson, was committed by a Latino male. I guess that's redundant. A Latino. None were committed by white males, and 31 were committed by African American males. Now, if you're me and you're the manager, supervisor, depending on the year and date, and there I am in my garage, and among my many responsibilities, looking out for it, this was a cash business, so there was large sums of money in the building at all times. You've got all these cars moving in and out. You know, at the height of our business back at one point, we were doing like 700 cars a day. You know, you've got like 10 employees. There's a lot going on. You're making decisions about where the cars go. You tell the guys where to take them. And you have to, in your mental, up in your head, you got to keep track of how many cars are on which floor, and there's 5. And you have to know that's enough for second floor. Let's go up to the 3rd floor, or this guy's coming in late. Let's put him up on the roof, or whatever. And you got the cars going on to the 1st floor that you're immediately responsible for. And you got all this stuff that's going on in your mind. And you're ticketing the cars, and you're getting when people plan to leave. So you put the guys who are going to be there all day in the back, and the people are going in and out in the front. You're making all these decisions. And on top of that, I've got to watch the street, make sure nobody's sneaking into the garage. And down here, where there's a spot where you can get over the fence. And I got to pay attention to what's going on here. And I got to watch the alley. So I'm doing all these things simultaneously. So you don't watch everybody equally. And of course, if you're me and you've been through, 12, 13, 14, 15 years at this point, who do you think I'm watching the most? Who do you think I'm watching to see if they're acting suspiciously? I admit it, young black males. Now, why is that? Because I'm a racist? Or is it because of the 32 crimes I witnessed, 31 were committed by young black males? I mean, I never had a car stolen by a black woman. Never in 16 years. So if I see black women loitering around talking to their friends, I figure they're just black women loitering around talking to their friends. Because I have no experience of them ever actually trying to steal a car. Same with East or South Asians. If I saw a bunch of black guys standing around and they were speaking whatever they speak in Nigeria or South Africa or places like that, or we used to be a lot of Ethiopians sitting around out there, and they'd be talking, and I knew I could understand, not understand, but hear what they were speaking. If it was Malric, I think they speak in Ethiopian. I wouldn't worry about them either. I never had an Ethiopian try to steal a car. But if there were a bunch of black dudes from Philadelphia hanging around a lot up toward where they went down into the alley or down where the drain pipe was, I'd keep an eye on it. Is that racial profiling? Yes. Is it racism? I don't know. I don't think it was. I think this is how our brains are designed to work. We understand patterns. I mean, if we get a lot of baby ducks in our backyard, and if I see crows flying around the baby ducks, I don't particularly worry about it. If I see hawks flying around the baby ducks, I get a little concerned. Why is that? Because I've never seen a crow come down and grab a baby duck. I've seen hawks come down and grab the baby ducks. The same things with the turtle eggs. We get turtles nesting in our yard, and I worry about crows. There's loads of birds out there. There's ducks. We have eagles. We have egrets. We have those things that are like 4 feet tall. They're walking around out there squawking. I keep my eye on the crows. Why? Because I've never seen any of the other birds go after a turtle nest, it's always the crows. So that's profiling, but to me, that's common sense. Why would I waste time worrying about what an ibis is doing near a crow's nest when I've never seen an ibis dig up a crow's nest? Now, if I see crows out there, I worry about it. I mean, this is the way our brains are designed to work. We discern patterns. Now, sometimes we discern patterns maybe where they aren't. But I would argue that if you work in Center City, Philadelphia, and you witness 32 crimes, and 31 are committed by a certain demographic, I don't think it's out of line to pay more attention to those people when they're hanging around your parking lot. I mean, I never had anybody but a young black male try to run me down with a car. I never saw anybody, of my crew shot in the head by anybody except by a black male. In this case, not a particularly young black male, but a black male. Shot him in the head. He was looking funny at his girlfriend, he said. Uh, Things happen and they happen fast. And, you need to be paying attention. And you can't pay attention to every person walking in Center City. There's too many people. So, your eyes focus on people who stop walking and basically who are black males, because they're the ones that probably, from your experience, are going to, potentially give you trouble. Now obviously, and given the vast number of African American males I saw in 16 years, only a minuscule, very small, less than 1% actually ever did anything. But of all the ones who did something, like I said, 31 out of 32 were basically black males. Is that racism? And if it's not, and I don't think it is, then think about what happens with the police. Now, I have no doubt that some police, I had these discussions. My father was a policeman, and he admitted, some guys get through the process and they get onto the force, and they're racist. But he said for every guy who sneaks in or wiggles his way in, who's a sort of closet racist, he said, there are 24 who will become racist through their work on the police force. He said, especially if they got sent into certain areas of the city. Now, my father was always lucky. He was the first thing he was assigned to traffic, and traffic, you went all over the place. Then you were out on the street dealing with cars, not people. I mean, those guys didn't even deal with criminality. They were just, waving people by and writing tickets. And then he went on to the labor squad, which again he worked all different areas of the city depending on situations. And mostly he was dealing with labor leaders and organizers who were basically white males. So he never developed any of these problems. He went through his entire career in the force. And he had a sharpshooter badge, and he was considered a marksman. He was a good shot. He never fired it at anyone of any color at any time in the line of duty. And he was very happy with that. He said he didn't join the force because he wanted to shoot people, even if they were bad guys. He said it's not something he was dying to do. But he said, if he had been like the other guys who usually you might get sent up to the district up in the Northeast where mostly everybody was white, or you could go down to Italy where everybody was Italian, and those guys hated Guidos and because they thought all young Italian males were mafia guys. I mean, that's an entirely different process those people went through, those cops, and they had very nasty ideas about Italians, especially if they weren't Italian. But if you were sent to Center City, where most of the people were white, but virtually all the crime being committed, at least not white collar crime, but other crime, blue collar crime, was being committed by African Americans, or you were out in West Philly or North Philly. He said those cops there, every day you go into work, every day you're dealing with the same people, and all the people you deal with look the same. And he said after a while, you start to disassociate these people. And, he thought that maybe they should move cops around more than they did. The problem with that is you put a cop into an area and you want community policing. They have to learn the area, they have to meet with people, they have to understand the leadership, and they have to be able to communicate, and they have to get to know people. So if you move them out and you move them around to another district that's white or Hispanic, then you lose all that. On the other hand, he said if you leave them there, then they all get, they develop these patterns. They get like me. where, over 15 years, you eventually associate criminality with African American males. And he said, these are the guys who become essentially racist because they assume that these are the people who are going to give them trouble. And that's, I don't know how we deal with that unless there's, I mean, you could say, well, if there was less crime, then it wouldn't be a problem because they wouldn't be arresting all these people. And that's true. Now, how do you get to that? Well, what's the answer there? More jobs, better schools. I mean, this goes down into whole entirely other arguments, legitimate arguments, but nevertheless other arguments. But if you want to understand, how police aren't born racist. They usually don't sneak through racist. They will frequently, although some do, but most become racist. I mean, I can remember African American police officers saying some of the most horrible things about young black people, cops that I knew, because they used to park their cars in our lot, so you'd get to know a lot of them. And they were just, I could make the argument. I don't have data for it, but just from my observation, they were even nastier in their use of language about African American, especially African American males than the white cops were. Even white cops who were very nasty in their attitudes. And I'd see these people. Some of these people I knew for years, and you could see them changing over the years. They would come in as a young cop from another area, and they were, one way. And then after about 3 or 4 years, you could see them saying things they never would have said 3 or 4 years before. And it's like being in combat. Or even a better example, I knew a guy. This guy was a hippie, had long hair, tattoos. He was smoking marijuana all the time. He was, always imitating Al Sleet, the hippy dippy weatherman that George Carlin used to do. I mean, he was a party going, happy go lucky guy. And he got a job with the state, and he ended up as a prison guard at Graterford, which is like one of the worst prisons in Pennsylvania. It's where they send the people who have tried to kill other guards and stuff. These people are never getting out, and they'll do anything they can possibly pull off. And I didn't see him for about 2 years, and he came in one time, and I forget his name, but he was entirely different. He had essentially a crew cut. He had long hair before. He was all beefed up. I mean, this guy was, lifting weights and doing everything at the gym. And we started to talk. We had a couple minutes to talk before he went off wherever he had to go. And my God, I said, why you? Oh, you got to beef up for the prisoners so that they respect you. If you look like a wimp, like I did, they just fucking try to stab you. I said, oh, okay, said, then he went on. I said, what's it like there? Oh my God. I mean, this guy who had been like a peace-loving, hippie, peacenicky kind of guy, he sounded like somebody from Aryan Nations. He was really bad. And this was just in 2 years. And he wasn't like that. Being in that environment made him like that. That's what he became in the prison where he was dealing with those things. And to a lesser extent, that's what's happening to the policemen in these districts. They can't help it. You see, just like, I said, 16 years for me, 32 crimes, 31 committed by one type of person. Your brains, that's the way your brains are wired to work. That's the way your brains are wired to function. Those are the kind of shortcuts our brains take to get us through life and through the day. We do, we go, I remember when I worked at ECU, there were like 4 ways I could get to school. They all took about the same amount of time. I didn't get up every morning and weigh the options A, B, C, and D. Which way should I go today? I don't know. I always went one way or the other. I just my mind told me which way to go. Don't go that way. Go this way today. It might be a train today, or it might be a random road to go that way. Your brain makes all these shortcuts for you. And that's basically what profiling is. Who do I need to be afraid of? Your brain tells you, young black males. And why does it tell you that? Because your brain has processed 32 crimes and 31 of the 32 are committed by the same people. That's how our minds work. I don't, I'm not saying that people who profile aren't racist, but they're not profiling because they're racist. And in some cases, they become racist because of the way their brain profiles. And I don't know, what the answer is to that, but I think it's important to understand what's going on out there with the police, with prison guards, with other people who deal with these situations.